Good evening and welcome to the January 13th, 2026 meeting of the Town of Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, including the use of AI note-taking apps, please notify the chair. Seeing none. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. Until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First order of business is to establish a quorum. Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Dykens?
Present.
Mr. Metters?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
And the chair is present. We'll now take up the minutes of January 6th, 2026. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? Hearing none, we'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any public announcements and agenda item requests from the board? From the public, in-person audience? Online? I see none.
Mr. Chair, you have
I'm
Greg
sorry.
Berman.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Greg Berman, our Director of Natural Resources, has an announcement. I'm sorry.
Great, no, thank you. It's good news. I'd like to share that. You may have seen in the recent main sheet, but the town was awarded a fiscal year 26 Seaport Economic Council grant for $857,048.80. So this is another, nice way of defraying the costs for the taxpayers for 90 Bridge Street. The project name was Repurposing a Boathouse, Life-Saving to Learning, and the idea is these renovations will enhance the longevity and preservation of a piece of Chatham's maritime heritage. So, another win, happy to share it with you.
So Greg, that boathouse is now in Fall River?
New Bedford.
New Bedford, I'm sorry. What's the difference?
It's on the way, though.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Do
Greg.
you know, Greg,
Congratulations.
do you know when, I'm sure it was said before, but when was that going to be towed back to us? Do you have a?
To us, pending a weather window.
Yeah.
But the work on the boathouse is being done over the next couple of weeks. The pier should be ready in about that time, so just kind of waiting near the end of the month, beginning of February.
Great. Thank you. Good
Thanks
job on
again.
the grant.
Thanks again, Greg. We have no public hearing tonight, and we have no items on the consent agenda, so the first item of, before we get to the regular business agenda, is Chatham Wells PFAS and drinking water testing and pumping update for December 2025. Call upon Rob Faley, our Director of Public Works.
Good evening, Rob Faley, Director of Public Works. Just want to go through the Chatham drinking water and testing update along with the drought update. So month of December, wells have been pumping 3 to 5 hours per day, and we did not hit the low-level alarm. As far as the training field wells for the water treatment facility, I'll flip through some of the photos as I speak. We had finished grading around the site. Pavement binder course has been placed near the rear of the building. The generator has been installed on the concrete pad with the wiring complete. The well pumps for wells 5 and 8 have been pulled and cleaned, and conduit has been run to the pump houses. Inside the facility, the plumbing has been completed with the exception of the restroom fixtures. The HVAC pipes are insulated and ready for startup. The chemical room supply piping is 75% complete, and electrical work is ongoing. For an irrigation meter update, this has been kind of a monthly update since August when our letters went out. Since then, we've now sold over $95,000 in irrigation meters. That's 475 irrigation meters. 417 have been installed for a total of 1,272 irrigation meters, operable irrigation meters in town. Since then, also 56 properties now have been put on their own private well for irrigation. 40 properties have disconnected, and 40 properties are on the exception report. As of January 7th, 6 properties still have not paid for a second meter and have been fined $28,200 each. We were talking with Lieutenant Harris about how we're going to pursue that, and we're thinking of taking it to the next level and approaching the clerk magistrate and taking them to court to try to reconcile that, at least get some action, but we're not even getting appeals or returned letters or any communication from those 6 property owners.
Rob, I'm going to just ask you a question that I asked yesterday at the Water and Sewer Committee. So with respect to the numbers, we started out with, of properties that were registered but hadn't purchased the meter, hadn't installed the meter. I think we were talking in the order of 700 or so.
It's 635.
And I think we're down to 100 approximately.
Roughly 100, yeah. And we are starting to find people who paid for the second meter but haven't made an appointment, so they got like a 90-day window. That 90-day window is now elapsing, so we're starting to find those people again. But we are getting a lot of people at our window and making those appointments. So it is working. You know, it's just a lot of extra work on DPW, but the goal is ultimately being met.
That's pretty good progress in just a few months, if I may say so. Thank you.
You're welcome. So water sampling, just ongoing sampling, nothing alarming to report. Same with station maintenance, system maintenance. It's all pretty routine. System is not stressed that much this time of year, so it's nice to get caught up on some of those things.
Rob, excuse me, the 28,000 that you mentioned just previous, I didn't hear you. Could you explain that again?
So there are 6 property owners that
Right.
They have a registered irrigation system, but they haven't paid for a second meter or whatever the case may be. So they've been fined $300 per day starting, I believe it was October 6th. And that just has been accruing since then.
And so the 28,000 is the total of the 6 folks?
It's total 300. We excluded some holidays, just to be fair, but that's what it is.
And the next step is, well, typically it's, either you pay the fine, you don't pay the fine, and if you don't, you go to the clerk magistrate.
Correct.
As a complaint, yeah.
So we want to just bring it to that next level. Maybe we'll get a response at that point.
Yeah, great, thank you.
So this is a chart showing December 24 versus December 25 pumping. We're about 5% lower than last December, which equates to almost 1 million gallons. Again, a bar chart, a graph showing the same thing. We're still seeing more moderate daily fluctuations from last year. So we're just seeing a little bit more steady use. And I'm not really sure what that is attributed to. I know we saw the similar pattern last month. Anyway, just an observation. Here's a bar chart showing the same information. And the monthly pumping report for the daily pumpage for each well. And you can see we're at 18.5 million gallons. And here's the pumping graph. Same information, just in a different form. And this is the year-to-date pumping report, which would really be equal to the year-end pumping report. So you can see we pumped 458 million gallons compared to last year, a little over 14.5 or so, roughly, million gallons less than last year. I think some of that has been attributed to the drought conditions. People have been pumping less. Probably some of it can also be due to people drilling their own wells or not irrigating quite as much on the system. And here's a bar chart showing the same information. It's slightly skewed because it shows the year-end results in that like aqua blue color. So it does skew all the information, so it looks like it's a lot smaller, but you can see South Chatham wells are pumping 140 million gallons by themselves, so just information for your use.
Rob, I just got a quick question on, I always kind of ask about 10 and 11, but there is some variability by day during the month of December. Do we run them both some days and one another, or some days we pump 30,000, and another day we pump 194,000, so how do we decide what we're doing in 10 and 11? And are they both active right now or not?
They are both active. I'm not sure where I'm seeing that much fluctuation. I see about 8.8 million is the high point. Remember, 10 didn't come online until July, I believe it was.
I'm looking at the month alone.
You're not looking at the,
I'm looking at the month alone. Mill Hill Road, wells 10 and 11, month, just the month by day.
Page 6.
Page 6, sorry.
Page 6.
I'm sorry, page 6.
sorry. So, we did neck down well 10 since the PFAS numbers were higher. So we're blending that with well 11.
Okay.
It's just daily fluctuations, it depends on the usage and the time that the wells come on.
The other question I had for 5 and 8, the treatment plant, is that given the great progress, is it online, is scheduled, we're on schedule?
We are scheduled,
There you
we're
go.
still working with the utilities to try to get power and gas service to the
Yeah.
building.
It's a beautiful project, looks great.
The only delay we are seeing right now is with solar panels on the roof, but I don't think it'll affect the overall schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
And then again, this is more of a year-end tally for unmetered water usage. You can see 21.5 million gallons. Most of that's due to flushing and blow-offs. And then again, same information in a different form. And here's our 5-year pumping comparison. You can see the pumpage hours in yellow, which is December 25. The hours are high. Not really sure why it's so much higher than the previous 5 years or 4 years. Certainly the usage isn't higher, so not sure. It's just one of those things. It's not like the wells have been substantially down. They've all been pumping. It's just I think maybe they just have dialed down their flow a little bit, so they're not working so hard. And here's the Chatham observation well. You can see we are starting a seasonal recharge, but it's a little bit slow, and we are a little further behind than I'd like to see this time of year. Certainly, we've had some rain and snow recently, but this is just really looking at December, and it takes a while for the groundwater to fully recharge after a rain event. And here's Brewster's observation well. Again, it's not much different than last month. You can see it's kind of stagnant. It's trying to get out of that, trying to get to that recharge level, but it's not quite there yet. Again, this is the bellwether for Outer Cape, so time will tell. It's not looking promising for a lack of a drought coming up, so it's just to prepare yourselves. We did meet with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee yesterday. They recommended that we remove the sandwich boards around town that say we're under water conservation and put them back out in the springtime, maybe April or May, just so people don't become complacent and just seeing those in the background. I thought it was a great idea. Just wanted to put that in front of the board for either input or any advice that you'd like to see.
Yeah, this came up yesterday, as Rob said, and I think they took a vote on that. So I don't know if the board members are inclined to raise any concern or objection to it, or do you want to take a vote of any kind? Corey?
I see the point of people being complacent to it. You see a sign over and over and over again, you just kind of ignore it at some point. So in the wintertime, I think putting the signs away actually make a whole lot of sense, so.
Plus what those signs ask you to do are things you wouldn't be doing anyway. You're not watering your lawn right now, for example. Or washing your car.
I don't think we need a vote.
I don't think, unless there's any, we're fine with it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
And so the Massachusetts Drought Task Force met on Friday. They looked at rainfall in Massachusetts. It is still lagging a little bit. They recommended that the Cape remain at a level 2. They recommended the focus of this time of year should be on indoor conservation and leak detection. And of course, continue our installation of irrigation meters. So this is what Massachusetts looks like now. Cape Cod would still remain in a level 2. Interesting how the islands, they broke apart, and Martha's Vineyard's at a 0 and Nantucket's at a 3. So something with the pattern of the rainfall through that area is really making quite a vast difference. And that's all I had for you, unless you have any questions.
Any questions or comments? I don't see any from the public either. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, thank you.
You might want to stay there because the next item is public comments on the business agenda. If anyone has any comments they wish to make this time, or they could make them during, contemporaneously during the agenda items. I don't see anybody. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that
Mr. Chair, Nicole Stern.
Nicole Stern? Nicole?
Good evening. Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I didn't move fast enough when you were finished with Rob. But I did have a question about when you plan on really upping the motor and finding the people that never registered. And I would think that that would be something that would start in May, when people start watering their lawns, rather than waiting until they start doing it, on a daily basis. Because if I remember the numbers correctly, there are many people that never registered. And I think that was part of the plan. Once we got this part started. So I'd like to know what the plan is on that.
You're correct, Nicole, and we did talk about that, and I'll ask Rob if he wants to say anything. I think we don't know exactly how many there are out there, but my sense is that there are probably 100 or 200 out there. I don't know, but we don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. Again, we've had about, I think the number was 45 or so that had registered now that we didn't know about previously. So I think we have to get through the backlog. We're still currently having irrigation meters inspections through March. And then as some of those extenuating circumstances, or people are finishing their houses, they're getting their lawn work done, there was another 40 that we have to get through the backlog. So I think this coming summer would be a good time to reevaluate that. Okay. We'll have better numbers. We'll be able to identify those people a little bit easier now that we have more solid information.
And right now, your staff is pretty well occupied with the registered ones.
That's correct.
Getting that together, but it is not something we will lose sight of. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Nicole.
appreciate that.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right. And I don't see anyone else? Okay, the next,
Mr. Chair, there's one other person online.
okay. It says G. Is that you, Elaine?
Yes, Elaine Gibbs.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a few things that I'd like you to consider when we talk about where we are on the sewer. Back in 2012, when we put in the wastewater treatment plant, there were 8,200 properties, industrial, commercial, institutional, residential. And phase 1 and 2 were supposed to cost $300 million. One was to be completed in phase 1, which was 5,300 properties, was supposed to be completed, connected by 2030. And phase 2, if needed, would be 2040. If I remember correctly, recently, we were told that those numbers are being pushed out and that phase one won't be completed until 2040. In looking at these numbers, I'm concerned. The whole point is to reduce our TDMLs. Until the properties are actually connected, that's not going to happen. You know, we can put in all the infrastructure, but if we don't connect them, we can't reduce the TDMLs. According to this, if I understand correctly, only 708 of the 5,300 have been connected since 2012. And we should have been at 5,300. We diverted our sewering to East Harwich. I mean, they have hundreds of properties over there that are now on sewer. And that adversely impacted the people in Chatham who should have been connected. There's a whole host of reasons. One, to keep our aquifers clear, but also two, property values. If you're on the sewer, it's a lot more financially attractive to future homeowners. So I'm concerned that we are now talking $650 million for phase one. And then I don't even know what the number is going to be for phase two if we have to do it. So, you know, to keep putting this off, I think we need to know how much is this going to cost us, because everybody has to comply and pay, you know, for this, whether or not they're actually sewered. So I would hope you can address those questions as we move forward, because what we're doing is we're saying, oh, we're in really good shape because we've connected 57% of the one where the orders went out, but the orders have only gone out to, you know, 708 people have been installed. And now the infrastructure on the existing downtown, where there were like 1,200 properties, it's so old now they have to be replaced. So, you know, this is getting to a point where when is Chatham ever going to get sewered? And how much? It sounds like it could potentially cost $100 million versus $300 million, which is what we thought we were going to be spending back in 2012. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps Rob can address some of these during the next item that we're going to take up. Okay, I don't see anybody else. So we'll proceed to the business agenda. And the first item is progress on the sewer connection efforts, which has been requested by our clerk, Stuart Smith. Stuart, I don't know if you wanted to say anything initially or just have Rob address it. I know he has a memo in the packet.
Well, I guess we could wait to hear from Rob. I mean, part of the reason I had asked for this update was for my own education. I know the numbers show that we're far behind on the hookups, and, you know, it concerns me, so I just thought maybe we could have some sort of an explanation. Is it lack of contractors? Is it lack of, I don't think it's lack of infrastructure, but what are the details? And Elaine kind of gave an overview of that.
Thank you. Rob?
Sure. So, you know, as you mentioned, this is in response to your request. So the original sewer system, we have currently 1,360 roughly sewer accounts. The original sewer system included around 652, and that was the system that was built in the late 60s, early 70s, mostly downtown area. Since then, we've had 872 applications at DPW. 708 of those have been installed. So we have a backlog of 164 residents who have applied, but they haven't installed. I don't know, some of those go back a number of years. I think we need a whacking stick to try to motivate people to install, you know.
They, is there a, forgive me, I'm sure you've answered this before, or is there a, what's the repercussions if you don't hook up? We've got a sewer line. I remember when they went by my house with a water line, but with a sewer line and you don't hook up, what happens?
Well, you're not like Elaine said, you're not reducing nitrogen or phosphorus going to our waterways. But I don't believe, it's really the Board of Health that is the enforcing agency here, and I don't know if they have a fining mechanism to motivate people to hook up.
I mean, it's similar, and then I'll let you go, but it's similar to the water discussion, where we're putting a significant amount of resources into a good cause, frankly, in both cases, in infrastructure, but the numbers are not encouraging. But I'll let you speak. Thanks.
No, a great observation, and it's really, we're asking property owners to incur an expense, and I think that's some of the hesitation there.
And so as water and sewer commissioners here, our regulations don't say, hey, you got to hook up because we want the nitrogen reduced. We've spent this, we spent a lot of money putting it by your house, so you got to hook up to this. We don't say that. That's a question, really.
It's up to the Board of Health. I'm not sure exactly what message they send out when they put out their connection orders. I don't know if Judy is.
So the regulations that govern, not just a question, but the regulations governing the requirements of hooking up to the sewer are under the Board of Health and not under the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
I believe so, yes.
Well, no, I think they're under the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
would
I don't
assume so.
recall whether there's an enforcement or what the enforcement mechanism would be. This was brought up yesterday at the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. And Rob, I think, correctly pointed out, it's the Board of Health that issues the connection order. And if you fail to connect, I think you're answerable in the first instance to the Board of Health. But I don't know what their regs say about it. And Greg Berman was about to say something. I don't have any more light to shed on.
We've gone to the expense, we
Yes,
being the community, to the expense of putting in a sewer line.
Yes.
We agreed with this at town meeting, we fund it, we pay for it, but then we're not getting, I won't say reimbursed, but we're not getting a fee to offset some of those expenses. The property taxpayers in general is subsidizing that. It just seems like that's not the way we want to do business.
Yeah, I suspect some of the folks that have not connected are dealing with the fiscal realities of it. Some of them were still are grinder pump people. That will be remedied pretty quickly because I think we're either have or about to have a contract with Mahoney to buy these pumps and get that get that into progress. But the remainder, I don't know the reasons, but you're right.
It might be something to explore for a future meeting as to whether, it just seems like there's some action there that we're not taking that probably we should be. I mean, I don't want to, people who are financially constrained, I'm sure there's particular issues for every particular case, but similar to the water issue, we spent millions of dollars putting all this material in. We need people to hook up for a whole variety of reasons. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it there. The grinder pump issue, have that as a note. How are we handling people who have already put grinder pumps in? There was a reimbursement discussion. Where does that?
There is. So they would be reimbursed the amount that the town is acquiring the grinder pumps for, which is just over $6,700, plus an additional $2,000 for some of the additional expenses for the electrical connections and upgrades.
The board has dealt with that. And
That's already been approved by the select board, yeah.
so if somebody applies for how do they apply for a reimbursement? Do they go to the DPW and apply for a reimbursement?
We just finalized the contract today. So, so it's back in FR Mahoney's hands, and now we can work on some of the other
Reimbursing
language.
folks that have to.
Some of the other requirements that are needed.
Thank you.
Just along those lines, again, yesterday, the Water and Sewer Committee considered a draft regulation for the Select Board as Water and Sewer Commissioners. It's an amendment to our sewer regulations on grinder pumps, which details out that mechanism. And Rob is going to finalize that, send it to town council, and then it'll come back to both the Water Committee and to us, probably within the next, the Water Committee meets next month, so he'll come to us with a recommendation.
Great, thank
Shireen,
you.
you had something you wanted to?
I did. I think we have to kind of be sensitive to the reality of the costs of this to the community. And we haven't really looked at or have a mechanism in place where we're able to assess what the real costs are to the community. I think a lot of towns are struggling with this. It's an expensive cost overall for the community, you know, for the Cape itself, it's billions, if in reality, at the end of the day, and it's been forced for us to have to do this. So I think one thing that we need to do is find an answer to that, just so that we're not just sitting in privilege saying, well, it's costly, but, everybody needs to hook up. That's not how it's going to work. It's something, when you're asking somebody who may have a house on a fixed income that lives down a hill and, has to, electric has to change in some homes, and you have to pump out the sewer, you have to remove the septic system, install a grinder pump, then there's the landscaping. I mean, you're talking, for some people, in the tens of thousands of dollars. And the reality of that is, it's unaffordable to some. So I caution that we've already talked about the, finding for the irrigation systems. I really caution that we would be doing anything like that. I think we need to look at, the programs that are out there, what we can do to tell folks about them, especially with the loan program through the county, which is, it's a revolving loan, so it's in good shape. But, what are the other things that we might have to face as a community to have the successes on the environmental side that, to get people to hook up? So.
Yeah, and we did, as you know, set up a fund of our own, which is a grant, but there's about 50,000 in there that we appropriated. That's not going to be nearly enough, obviously.
That's just a drop in the water, I really feel, yeah.
So as this moves forward, I think we'll have to take a.
Just an
closer look at that.
observation, I
Yeah.
think, but we should
No,
be
it's a-
thinking about what
it's a
those
good one.
solutions could be, or
Yeah,
an
and-
assessment at least.
Yeah, my questions were really to not end up where we ended up with the water issue. And it is expensive. We need to address that issue for those homeowners. There's a couple of different programs, maybe we got to expand that. I get it, but we need a plan moving forward, so we are not putting millions of dollars into an infrastructure and not having the users hook up to it.
Greg, did you want to speak on one of these issues? I forgot which.
Sure, I did just want to weigh in that the Board of Health does issue the connection order. So if people are not able or unwilling to make that connection in the period of time that they're given, they can come in and, make a case as to why not. I think most of those cases have been financial and also scheduling. It's very difficult to even find people who can do the design and installation of that system. I think that may have gotten a little better recently, but it's still a concern. And then the overall moratorium on those people who had to use grinder pumps kind of slowed things down for a while. Board of Health has been as understanding as possible with people coming in. I think they want compliance, and in the monthly report, just submitted to Kathy today, we do see it tick up the percentage over time. It's not as fast as we'd like, but it is reported on a monthly basis.
So that's interesting, thank you. So the effort to follow up on people that can hook up or are required to hook up, that's done through the Board of Health, and there is some process for pursuing that.
Yep, those who have connection orders and have not connected yet are
They come to the
monitored.
board, yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Rob, please continue.
I believe that's all I had for you. I can just, the Board of Health did have an update in here for, they had 823 orders to connect with a 50% success rate. The numbers will never match up. We have single properties with multiple accounts, there are some that were connected prior to the Board of Health putting out connection orders, so the numbers are similar, but they'll never match up exactly. And I just wanted to say that we're on the cusp of sending out approximately another 190 okay, approximately 190 connection orders this year. So, so we're getting there. We're making strides, so.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from anybody?
I just had a quick question, Rob. When we're done sewering an area in town, what's the lag between do you have any idea what the lag is, getting the notes out to folks that it's okay to get a plan in place and apply?
So, for example, like Contract 1D2A, which
Yeah.
was Meeting House Road,
Yep.
we still haven't sent out connection orders. We're still waiting for, the final documents, the O&M manuals, the engineered as-built drawings, those things. We can't give those to an engineer to connect to without them being completely verified by the engineer. So, there is a little bit of a lag time. That project was physically completed for probably close to a year now, and we're still
Right.
trying to get the documentation in place.
So just to put an exclamation point on comments that my brethren and sisters have made here, fellow members, I do think the financial constraints are very, very important in this discussion. And one of our goals and objectives that we kind of hashed through last week was, let's come up with some creative solutions and some incentives, I think was the word that was used, and financial incentives even to have folks hook up. I mean, the overarching goal, as Shireen articulated, is to improve the nitrogen loads in our fresh and saltwater estuaries, which is number one. It should be a number one goal, one of them. And to get there, I think grinder pumps were a huge impediment to not having folks hook up. And we do have programs that we have publicized with the county on low interest and no interest loans that are available for folks should they meet certain income criteria. So anyway, I think we need to stay on it with those types of creative incentives, and just be aware that we may have to do more and more with respect to getting folks some assistance. So that's my comments.
Stuart?
Rob, tell me where I'm going sideways on this, but, so the DPW has received 872 sewer connection applications since 2012. Do you know, and you may not, but the infrastructure that we've installed since 2012, how many people are able to hook up to that as the opportunity? Is that number in here and I'm just not?
I believe and I'm not sure when the Board of Health started sending out connection orders, but I believe that's the 823 on the next page that the Board of Health had sent out connection orders to.
Okay, you think that,
Again, there may be
doesn't seem like a
a
lot.
single property that may have multiple sewer accounts or sewer lines.
that just, it doesn't seem like a lot of, that doesn't seem like as high a number as I would have thought naively.
And then I have trouble reconciling those numbers with the DPW has received 872 sewer connections since 2012, but 82% of those have been installed. So you got 57% BOH, and then you got 82% with the DPW. There seems to be a little bit of disparity there. And I'd be concerned about the difference, the delta between the 872 and the 708 is 164. They're still pending. They go back quite a while. So I think a good survey would be, what are the impediments to those folks that have been apprised of their need to tie into for the last 13 years? That would be, I think, indicative of what the needs are, and then maybe we can start to address those there. This is a long-term thing, and I'm not making excuses, but it's very complex and it's long-term. But one hopes, and I believe, that the payoff downstream will be, we'll have bay scallops back in our waters. I mean, tongue-in-cheek, but eelgrass is back, shellfish is back, and we have fresh,
You're going to have to deal with
healthy saltwater.
fertilizer for that to
We
happen
will.
too.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the goal.
I just wanted to mention on those lines that at your request, I think it was, Jeff, the Director of Natural Resources did give us a memo on the cleanup of results in a couple of the water bodies, and perhaps we can maybe post that online. It's just a two-pager, I think, that Greg did. We just got it within the last few days.
It's
Okay.
interesting. It's very good.
All right.
If I may, Mr. Chair, also, we're on the cusp of sending out a publication that really is like an instruction manual for folks what to expect when sewer comes in your neighborhood, how to apply for additional funding, that kind of stuff. But we just want to let the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee language get in front of this board first before we make that public.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. All right.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the next item, which is the Chatham Fish Pier South Jog Pedestrian Walkway Project, pending contract award and an authorization vote from the Select Board. And I will call on Greg Berman and our Harbor Master to present this. Welcome.
Great, thank you for having us. So when last we talked about this was back in March, when we brought it forward to go through the procurement and bring the engineer on board. We have gone through the procurement, but just wanted to give a little refresher on the project, just a few slides. So everyone here certainly knows what we're talking about. It's the south jog of the fish pier, and very specifically a walkway that was not completed during the overall south jog project because it would have slowed the project down by a year. So it was separated out. We now have the permits in place. We've gone through procurement. The rationale for this particular project is right now we do have those Jersey barriers that are attempting to separate the pedestrians from the working waterfront, from the trucks in the area. The goal is to move the pedestrians over to the safe area of the walkway, and at which point that would free up more space to actually use that intended area as it was designed. And one of the reasons the harbor master is joining me today is, I've heard and he's seen some of the potential concerns about just using Jersey barriers.
Jason?
Absolutely. Probably my top safety concern, and it has been for quite some time. I'm sure Stuart could kind of attest to this. The Fish Pier is the top tourist destination in town. It's still a working pier. This project was designed to help a couple of different things to increase the productivity of the trucks that offload. So that jog was widened up to allow 2 trucks to be able to get over there. Since we didn't complete that, we added a makeshift Jersey barrier lane to try to keep the pedestrians separated from the work areas. We've had several documented people tripping and falling trying to step over those, not to mention countless that we don't know about. And we spent a substantial amount of money at the onset of the project up on the Barcliff Avenue extension, putting a walkway there to try to get people out of the roadway going up. Our wharf rangers have done a fantastic job of trying to really separate that, but it's just the sheer amount of people. 150,000 visitors a month is almost impossible to keep it about from there. This project will greatly increase the ability to try to keep those pedestrians out of the working lower lot area and give them safe access down to the South Jog float dock. So
we have gone through procurement. The lowest qualified bid is $596,445. This is by ACK. If you recognize the name, they're also the firm that did the trap dock over by the Harbor Master Building. As part of their schedule, they are planning to be completely out by the middle of April, which was another big push that we put in the procurement documents that they had to finish up and get out. We do have liquidated damages if they go past that time. The recommended source of these funds is the original, we call it the 2017 Annual Town Meeting Waterfront Bond. One of the reasons that there is some capacity in this 2017 bond is the grants that we've received for 90 Bridge. So just within the last several months, we've received over 1.6 million. One of those is the MDAR Food Security Infrastructure Grant. That's for strengthening the shellfish upweller. The idea is getting all the pieces of the upweller. The department in town has really been thinking outside the box with some of these grants. This is for food security, and upweller is very well suited to that, but it's not necessarily intuitive when we were looking for grants out there in the ether. And then one of our kind of go-tos is a Seaport Economic Council grant. It was phrased a little bit differently this year, but again, it may not have funded, a bulkhead replacement, but the idea of life-saving to learning, we were able to bring the historic and multi-use aspect into this proposal, and we've received that $857,000. So overall, just for 90 Bridge, it's been $3,850,016 brought in from Seaport Economic Council, MDAR, CPC funding, and some state dredging grant numbers. So what this means, right now, we still have just over 2 million in that 2017 bond article. As things look now, we may not need to use that for 90 Bridge with these additional grants. So if we subtract out the ACK bid, this is money that would be available. Although, you know, if I hesitate greatly using all of it before we get the final procurement done on 90 Bridge. So this is kind of a safety net. And if it doesn't get used for 90 Bridge, we do have several other projects that we'll be bringing to town meeting that can be defrayed by these funds. And that's our last slide, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask first, in terms of the design, so I assume we're going to get rid of the Jersey barriers. Will there be a wall of some kind separating the pedestrians? I mean, that just,
The existing concrete wall here,
okay,
the walkway is going on the other side of that.
okay, okay. Right now, the pedestrians walk in between the barriers and the wall.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And this, I recognized the successful bidder. That's the company up in Quincy, right? They did the trap dock, as you said, and they did a great job there. They did it fast, and they did it on budget. How many other bids were there?
There was one other bid,
Okay.
and I think that has a lot to do with the scale of the project, the timing of the project, and, I mean, there was interest in that, I believe there were 10 or 12 that pulled the procurement, but only 2 actual bids on it.
Was there much of a difference in the price between the two bids?
This one was significantly more inexpensive.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from Stuart?
No, I'm glad this is coming to a conclusion, because Phase 1 of the sidewalks really obviously leads to this one, Phase 2. So that'll be nice to complete, and certainly will improve the public safety concerns. I'd be a little concerned about the timing, but ACK is a very, very good company to work with, and so my comfort level is a little less, so the fishermen should, I think, be happy with the fact that we're going to get a better company than we've had down there in the past. Yeah, that wall that is identified to the right of the trucks was installed when we did the South Jog in preparation of doing this job. So glad to see it's coming to a conclusion.
Jeff, and then Shereen, and then Corey.
Just a couple comments. So I'm a pedestrian. I come down the new the new walkway along Bar Cliff, and you pick up the sidewalk. How do I traverse in front of the Wharfinger building to get to that? Is that still safe, or, okay, is there a walkway? Okay. Okay, well, if you don't have a photo, that's okay.
So right here, you can see how the green lines come. This
Yep.
walkway runs down here, and you come right across, and then outside of the parking lot, there's already a... If you follow along the short green path there's a walkway that runs outside of the parking lot line that's separated by timber railing that goes all the way around the lower lot to where the walkway would pick up on the exterior of the proposed walkway.
Gotcha, perfect. That's great. And I just probably didn't notice it. So Greg or Jill, I have a question. Who wrote the grant for 800, the one that we received $857K for? Who actually wrote that grant?
That was a joint effort that a lot of our grants are. It was a combination of Harbor Master, Coastal Resources, so Jason, Catherine, and Renee was a major part of it,
Right,
the
well.
Upwiller parts.
And then the other grant as well is just a super job, excellent job, unreal. I mean, really creative, well done.
Thank you.
The last, sorry, so the last portion, well, I'm not sure, I shouldn't say that this is an absolute, but the North Jog bulkhead had some difficulty with that, is the plan to, at some point, replace that, or is that a repair job, do you think, yet, or you do not know
We've
yet?
got, the north bulkhead assessment should be coming up here fairly soon. We're
In
working on
process.
it today.
Yeah, we literally are putting out a PO this week to bring the engineer in to do an assessment on it. And that's after the harbor master temporary repair of the whales there.
Great, thank you.
Shireen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The safety factor, this is really important to the fish pier, obviously, so that's great. But I just wanted to say, Greg, congratulations to the team that put together those 2 grants and were awarded. The MDR food security grant is a difficult one. It's really sought out after. People don't understand that it's from all over Massachusetts. The application process includes food banks and schools and towns and private businesses, so it's highly competitive. And it was really exciting to hear that the town of Chatham got that grant. I was able to thank the governor at Mass Seafood Day in person and talk about it to the public there. So it was really exciting for the town. We got a great applause for that. Anyway, thank you, though.
Thank you, Shireen. Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you for the update. Just one piece of clarification, but I didn't see it in the plans, and I could be missing it. So, I mean, we're balancing a highly visited area, tourist, locals, whatever, in a very commercial area. I mean, it is always going to be that way. It's a very delicate balancing act. Removing the pedestrians into this walkway area makes so much sense. We're still going to have that concrete wall. My question is, in the area we're going to have 2 trucks operating, are we implementing any bollards in that little section, or are we relying on the concrete wall to take a couple of bumps and bruises over the time?
It's got timber bumpers.
It will have the timber, okay.
It does. You can see them right there. It's got timber bumpers that run along the side of the concrete there on the inside.
Okay, that's what, clarification. But I know on the other side, we got a couple of the white bollards here and
we
there.
have- That's protecting the water spigot and electrical
Right.
spigot there, and then you have the high curbs there that run around concrete.
Perfect.
Okay. I just want to say first, and along with my colleagues here, I really appreciate and thank the staff, town manager, the Department of Natural Resources, your current staff, your predecessor, Dr. Duncanson, for the way you've husbanded the $11 million waterfront bond, and that involves also the input of the various waterways-related committees. I think that's really been excellently done. And secondly, I think we're being asked to take a vote because when we voted the waterfront bond, we made very specific provision that all these projects would come before the select board for approval or authorization. So Jill, you want to vote from us to authorize you to sign the contract with ACK? Is that the?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I'll take a motion.
I move that we authorize the town manager to execute the contract for the Chatham Fish Pier South Jog pedestrian walkway with ACK Marine and General Contracting, LLC.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No further discussion. I'll call for a vote. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
The next item is residential exemption implementation for FY 2027 fiscal impact review. Let me state what this is and what it is not. This is a discussion on the fiscal impact of the residential tax exemption that has been voted by a majority of the board to go into effect in 2027. We know that the board will have to take another vote in September when the tax rate is set. But in the meantime, because that is the current position of the board, the staff, town manager, need to prepare for its implementation. And there are some impacts related to the budget and related to staffing and related to the overlay account that the Board of Assessors is responsible for. And so that will be the focus of the discussion tonight. This is not going to be a freewheeling discussion on whether, on the pros and cons of the residential tax exemption. We will have a discussion along those lines in the context of a citizen request that I intend to put on the agenda for one of our meetings in February for a review and analysis of the factors causing the implementation of a residential exemption. That was requested by Mr. Ray, so that's what we'll do at that time. So the focus tonight is really on the fiscal implementation of the residential tax exemption as voted by the Select Board. So with that, I'll turn to our Finance Director, Carrie Mazzaro, and our newly appointed Director of Assessing, Candace Cook. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening. Like Dean said, we are here tonight to address the fiscal impact of the overlay account at the 35% that was voted by the board. I've got some slides here. I won't read my whole agenda report, because I'm sure you guys already have looked through it and everything. What overlay is? The overlay is the amount raised by the assessors independently of the town meeting as permitted by law for the purpose of creating a fund to cover property tax abatements and avoid fractions in the tax rate. So just to clarify a little bit on this, so if somebody comes in after our tax rate is set, it would hit our overlay account. So right now, as of December 31st, 2025, we have a balance in our overlay account of $945,000. That's over the years of overlay being, yes, compiled. Yeah, exactly. So traditionally, the town raises approximately $250,000 in overlay. And on a 4-year average, we spend about $103,000 each year on exemptions and abatements. Traditionally, as well, the town has put $150,000 towards the OPEB liability, but they have to vote that as overlay surplus. And this year, I'm not going to be doing that. And so we're going to do a different funding source for that. And then as of June 30th, 2025, there was about $546,000 in future potential liabilities that could hit the overlay account.
What would those be?
So those are real estate taxes that people have not paid yet, personal property taxes that people haven't paid yet, and our ATB cases that are currently.
The tax board.
Yep. So this slide goes over the estimated overlay impact for FY 2027 at different percentages. We have 35% with an overlay exposure of about 2.7 million.
These are the percentages of the residential tax exemption, if implemented.
Correct.
What the impact would be for the overlay. Just wanted
Correct.
to clarify that.
Yes, yeah. And using the overlay balance of 500,000, we would still need an additional overlay needed of about 2.3. I just rounded up. 20%, the overlay exposure is 1.5. Using balance in our overlay of 500,000, we would still need an additional 1 million. At 10%, it's 785,000. Using 500,000 of our overlay, we would need 285,000. And at 5%, the overlay exposure is 392,000. And we could just use our overlay balance of 392,000 that we have in our current.
Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, but there's no assumption about any use of free cash in those nets. So if you go back to that last column.
Yeah.
So the potential to hit, for example, on the 20%, you'd need additional overlay of $1 million, but, and that's using what we have in the overlay now, a balance of 500, but there's no assumption of using any kind of free cash to offset that $1 million.
Right, I'm sorry, I don't have that slide, but in my report, I did put down using, potentially having an article of roughly 500,000 of free cash to go towards the 35%, which we would still need approximately $1.8 million. And if we did something like that, we would still need to somehow fund the 1.8. Either it would come out of the tax rate on the next year. The issue with overlay is it's something that we don't need to go to town meeting for and get approved unless we're going to put more money in there. So we would have to do an article to fund the free cash at town meeting to get into the overlay. The assessors, the board usually approves the amount that we put into the overlay each year.
They make a recommendation, but they also approve it.
Yes,
And if we're going to use overlay funds for another use like OPEB, then it goes to a warrant article.
yes, it does. And they approve the overlay surplus.
So Carrie, the point is though, if we allocated or at least assumed $500,000 of the use of free cash here, you'd be deficit of what, 500 grand of free cash?
Right, I wouldn't have 500,000 of free cash and then 1.8 million.
1.8 million for what?
For the overlay exposure that could possibly hit the account.
I'm talking about the 20% line, not.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I thought you were at the 35%.
Trying to find a
Yep,
balancing act between.
Yep, at 20%, it would be 500,000, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's,
So you would, you would need, I'm looking at the 20% too. So
Yeah.
you've got 500,000 you're taking out of the overlay.
I would take out of the overlay balance that we
You've got another
currently have.
million that you need, so you're proposing, what, 500,000 for free cash?
500,000 from free cash,
And
yeah.
where would the other 500 come from?
It would have to come from the next year on the, tax
FY
rate.
'28 tax rate, not FY '27?
It wouldn't be on 27, it would be on 28.
Okay. All right.
I think if I might, Mr. Chairman, the balancing act is, starting this at a level that's palatable that actually provides some benefit, but it's also palatable to the town, that's workable for the town. And I not to preempt any conversation, but I did notice that other towns in the lower and outer Cape, started at 20%. They didn't start at 30 or 35 or even 50, which we're allowed to do by new legislation, but they started at 20. And some, mostly over the years, have increased it, a little bit, up to 30 or 35 or 32. Okay.
A couple started at 5.
Yeah, a couple started at 5, and one of them has moved off.
Yeah.
And the most recent one, I think, was Eastham, that started at 5 and still at 5, but
Yeah.
they just.
They just started
they
it
just
last year,
started,
yeah.
Okay. All right, cool, thank you, that's helpful.
You're welcome.
Please continue.
Oops, sorry, I think I went backwards. So this is the tax rate impact. So our current tax rate is $3.67. Do you want me to skip to 20%? At 20% at full participation, it would be $4.02. If we had 60% of participation, it would be $3.87. Yep.
Just a quick question, the assumption of the 60% of participation, is that kind of based on what other towns have experienced in our?
Yes,
region?
so that is the need, that's why we need the money in the overlay, is because we have to anticipate that not everybody's going to apply right away.
All right,
So if 60% of the residential residents, I should say, apply, then we still need this additional money for our overlay, because they can apply for the residential exemption after we set the tax rate. And that's when it hits the overlay account, because we still have to balance everything.
absolutely understand.
Is it the assumption that the other 40% in full are going to apply? Is that what the experience is in these other towns?
That's what the experience has been in the other
They're getting
towns.
close to 100 or 100% participation
So
of
Eastham,
eligible properties.
yeah, so Eastham started their residential exemption early. They started it in January, and that's why I'm here today, talking to you guys, because if we're going to do this, we need to start it early. We have to get as many people as we can to apply for this as soon as possible because of the effect of our overlay. And that's what happened in Eastham. They sent out letters to everybody to get people to apply, and they had about 50% of people apply. So then they still needed to have that fund the other 50% if they came in after the fact, after they set their tax rate.
So are you going to be sending letters out to every taxpayer?
We're going to have to think of something to do to get people to apply, if this is what you want to do.
One of the pieces of information that's going to be important, because I think we have 1,500 properties in trust, or something like that. that there are guidelines from the Department of Revenue that are very particular about who qualifies, and, you know, whether you or Candace want to comment on them, but you have to be named as, the property owner has to be named as both the trustee and the beneficiary in the trust.
Yes,
And
that is correct.
there may be some other information that I've forgotten. So some people may have to have their trusts amended to qualify.
And just a note to that is if they did want to make that adjustment, it's actually too late because they would have had to do it as of January 1st of 2026.
Really?
So then they
Okay.
would not qualify for this year
Okay.
if they were not listed as a beneficiary and a trustee. So we'll have to be going through those documentations to see if they qualify under that.
Okay.
And of course, with LLCs, they automatically are disqualified per the SJC. They do not get the personal exemption.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be unhappy news to some people. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing is, we would have to also get another staff member to help go through all of the
Documentation.
You're talking about
trusts
hiring
and
others.
everything to look through, yeah.
Is that a full-time or part-time position?
It would be a temporary part-time to start.
Okay. And how about the review of, a legal review of the trust? Is that what you're planning to do? You're going to use town council on that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Stuart?
So you're, on your memo, you just touched on it, necessitated an additional staff person. That's a temporary person of some sort.
As of right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what are they going to be doing? I mean, I kind of know, anecdotally what they're going to be doing, but kind of walk us through the, the process, because you just said something that, like reviewing trusts and what have you, and I'm thinking, well, okay, there's some legwork here.
Absolutely. So to answer that, Stuart, what we're going to have that individual be doing is there's already an application that's out there that's on our website that's pending. It's not visible to the public yet, but that web application will be there. So the taxpayer can fill out the application together with the required documentation. There's a whole list of documentations. We're going to need the first pages of their federal and state tax returns, of course, redacted. If in the event they don't file tax returns, we will be looking at Social Security statements, and then we'll have to look and see at their driver's license to make sure their address lists Chatham. If they don't have a driver's license, then we're going to look at maybe their Mass State ID, and then also we're going to need to look at their vehicle registration. And again, if they're not driving, we'll use their Mass ID, and then we'll have to look to see if they're, on the census or voters. And then lastly, we'll be looking at to see if, how the property is held. Is it held in a trust? And then we have to go through and make the determination and possibly reach out to town council to see if they're going to qualify, if they are a beneficiary, as well as a trustee. And presumably, we'll either have to get that information from the registry. Most likely with scheduled beneficiaries, those are not recorded, so that's something that's going to the taxpayers are going to have to give to us. And then, of course, the application has to be signed. So there's a lot of information that's going to have to be going over, and a lot of confidential information. And then, of course, possibly reaching out to people, because if they only provide us with a certain amount of information, we need more, then we would have to reach out to them.
Would you envision down the road, if the town continues with the residential tax exemption, that we could automate this to a degree? Do other towns have?
Well, eventually, yes, because just the first year is what's
Yeah.
robust, is because the fact that they do have to file the application the first year. Thereafter, we're not going to, we're just going to be maintaining it. The only time is if in the event that their deed does change, then they would automatically be disqualified, because if they did some estate planning, then they would have to reapply, or if they, added someone to their deed, we'd have to recheck that or put it into a trust. And then, of course, we do have to make sure implementation, so it's put into the billing system, as well as putting it on with a DOR, so they're aware of what the residential exemptions are having. And then, of course, making sure they pay at least 10% of their taxes. So it's going to be once it's implemented, then it'll be just maintaining.
Great, appreciate it, thank you.
Is that January 1 qualifying date set in statute?
Yes, that is statute.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
We'll switch. Yep. Okay, so we want to discuss the savings and what can happen before the break-even point. The break-even point has to do with when it starts to level out on the exemption, and then there is no more benefit after that because it is over that amount. So if the adoption of the 35% were to be implemented, again, the tax rate would be $4.34. A non-resident would be paying $2,500 more in taxes, whereas a qualified primary resident would be paying $6 in taxes. Now, we can use the example if the 10% would be, less, be $6 less. And now if we use the example of 10%, the tax rate would be $3.84. A non-resident would be paying $635 more in taxes, whereas a primary resident paying $4. So you can see the difference between adopting, the 35 and the 10%. The differences. So this, again, going back to that full participation, that's if everybody applies. Before we set the tax rate, we get that 100% participation. And the different percentages, starting at the 35%, and we use the valuation of a home at 1.7. If the 35% was adopted, then the tax rate, again, would be $4.34. The savings of a primary taxpayer resident would be $1,357.94, whereas a non-resident would be paying $1,135.14 more. And then if you want to jump down to the 5%, the tax rate would slightly increase to $3.75. So then the savings would be for a primary residence of $167.81, whereas a non-resident would be paying $140.28 more.
It's not just the non-residents. I want to come back to the trust. I want to come back to, so leave that up.
Okay.
But I want to come back to the subject of the 1,500 properties in trust. Do we know if those are residents or non-residents? Do we know?
That I do not know. I'd have to run a report.
Okay.
This
But
is their primary.
if you didn't amend your trust by January 1st of 2026 to qualify, and we know, as you pointed out, that at the Registry of Deeds, they don't really recite, when you record your trust document, you don't record the whole trust. Most
No.
people don't.
It's usually an
It's
abstract.
just a syllabus. And typically, the trustee's name is there, but the beneficiaries are not.
Yeah.
And there are trusts that don't specifically name the property owner as the beneficiary, even though they might be in fact. And if those folks are residents of the town and have not, by January 1 of 2026, amended their trust, they're going to be treated like a non-resident.
Exactly.
They're going to get a higher tax bill.
Exactly.
At a higher tax rate.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick question. So at the 20% level on this slide, you guys, and this slide does assume that there's 60% participation by those folks that are eligible and actually sign up. So 40%'s out here somewhere.
Yep.
They haven't signed up.
After the fact.
Yep.
And married to that 20% for the 40% out in the ether, what you're saying we're going to need another 500 grand of the tax rate to fund the overlay account? Does that $4.02 include that 500
Correct.
grand?
Correct.
Yeah.
It does, okay. So, and then at these levels, a resident would, about $925 to the good on their taxes, their property taxes. And a non-resident would pay $347 more.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's kind of my sweet spot.
I mean, these are just estimates. Again, they're based on our current
Information.
that we have.
And would it change appreciably at 25%? Or?
I mean, in between the two, you've got 20 and 35, so
Yeah,
halfway, roughly.
Yep, okay.
I think in my spreadsheet, I didn't put all of the numbers in there, but I think if you got the spreadsheet, there was numbers in there for 15, and there might have been one in there for 25 as well.
By the way, this was excellent material.
It's a lot.
No,
It's a lot of-
but
It's a lot to look through,
listen,
but,
I know it's a lot.
yeah,
And having done stuff like this, but you did a great job.
okay,
You did a great job.
thank you.
We just
Easy to
wanted you to
follow
be
and-
aware of the implementations of it. Bring it to your
Yeah,
team.
no, you're on your game. You're on your game.
So, let's see, I don't think I did one for 25.
Yeah,
I did one for 15.
I think it's reasonable to assume that it's somewhere in between the,
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
those are the 20 and the 35. Just trying to balance the need to funding a large overlay versus really getting some meaningful savings for residents.
Right.
And I don't want to give everybody a stroke on about what I'm going to ask, but we're sure that the new seasonal designation for that we're a seasonal community can go to 50% if
Correct.
that's great. Thank you.
And of course, we're just recommending just the first year. Obviously, next year you can go up again at a higher percentage, just so once we get it implemented and we have a more knowledge of what's going to be implemented.
Sure. Thank you.
Again, as a general statement, I don't mean to hijack this conversation, but I think the 35% is too aggressive. And I think the tell is, if we're going to do this, or when we do it, the 20% level, I think, is kind of where we'd like to be, not 35, if you will. I think it's too aggressive. That's my opinion, not speaking for anybody else, but my opinion, it's too aggressive. Thanks.
Corey?
Just to go back on the 1,500 trust, do we have an idea of those properties? Those are a spectrum of different values, different price?
I don't know the values on them. We just did a report on just how many trusts they were, but I could definitely do a more specified report to say not only value, but when I run the report, I could do it according to zip code. So again, that's not always a solid number because we don't know if they're truly, in fact, a resident until they've fully applied. That's why we don't always know.
Right, because I think what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, some people say trust and think, oh, these are multi-million-dollar homes, but truster is a mechanism for
To
estate planning. So you
Absolutely.
could have a $800,000 home in a trust, and you can have an $8 million house in a trust. So,
Absolutely.
I'm thinking that the 1,500 trusts are a broad spectrum of different values without the town. That's
Yes.
that's the position
Probably.
I'm taking. And I know this is a very delicate topic. People, we've discussed this on a number of occasions over many, many years. And no matter where we land, I think that we're going to rub some people, in a way that they don't approve of where we're headed with this. But as we're trying to nudge this forward, I'm feeling very conscious of 1,500 people potentially getting pinched on this. And we're trying to do the right thing, define what the right thing is. But we have 1,500 potential residents, that could get significantly pinched by this if we implement it, in the timetable we're looking at it. So that is definitely on my mind at the moment. And I just don't know what we do to make things fair because, we're looking at these numbers, and, if we were to take a $3 million home, those numbers are going to double. We take $1 million home, they're going to drop in half pretty much. So this is all based on the 1.7 value of a house. So it's.
And don't forget, once you hit the break-even point,
Yep.
So those people will be affected as well.
Correct.
They're going to be paying as if
they're going to be
secondary
paying
residents.
the higher rate.
I think the issue with the trust is an important one, and I think it's one we need some more data on. But to your point, Corey, on the 1.7, there's complete analysis of all different, in the package, you can go at any percent, and every single value of a residence is included, and so you can really get a good beat on it. Very well done.
Can you provide the slide presentation to us?
Absolutely.
That wasn't in the package per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have more that you wanted?
Just one more, just to kind of go a little further on what kind of touched on what Corey had just said. So you could look at the situation that those primary residents that are over that break even, in addition to the trust documents, that if they didn't change it, they could be paying as if they were a non-resident. So you'd look at, if their house is valued at 1 point, the 3.7, they're going to be paying that much more. And then, of course, you figure you got your non-residents, they're going to be bearing that larger share of the real estate roll. So those are some things to take in consideration to be fair and equitable the best you can. So this is all we have, so we just wanted to bring this to your attention, so when you do vote in September at the classification hearing, you can take all this in consideration at the percentage that you want to start out with, and then, of course, as years go on, the following year, you can increase it.
So what are you looking for tonight from the Select Board?
I'm looking for direction on where you want to go. If we want to do 20%, 10, 5, whatever you're looking to do, because we need to, if this is something that you guys really want to do, we have to start implementation now, because we can't do it in September, because we won't.
You need to start now.
Well, I want 0%, but I'll let the rest of the board comment on any comments or additional comments or questions before I call on the public.
Okay.
Is that what we're, so suggested motion looks like it's somewhat different than what we're being asked to do here. So
So the board voted to implement it as of FY '27, which would be July 1.
Yep.
So the staff needs to take steps now, both in terms of a hiring of a part-time person. I think that's a lesser issue, but they need to know which way you want to go. The vote was 35%. Did you want to modify that? They need that information.
Okay.
And, because they're going to put together some sort of a communication to the property owners,
Yeah,
so that people can start applying.
right. And I agree. I think it was you, Jeff, who, and Corey, about I'd like a little bit more information on the trust issue. That's information we didn't have before, so a little bit more study on that would be helpful. If we remember when this conversation we had before, my motion was for 30%. That was amended to 35%. The seasonal communities designation allows us to go to 50%. I agree that 35 is, given the chart here, is towards the higher end. However, I'm still looking at trying to give some relief to the people, the working class here in the community, and those folks who have retired here, who, don't have the income available to support the cost of living here, not only specifically in Chatham, but the Cape and Massachusetts in general. So I'm willing for a discussion on that. Maybe something like half of the 50 would be 25, to ease us more gently into the direction that I think is a good cause. But that's where I'll start. Is we could have a discussion about that, and I don't have any trouble with the temporary part-time help to help facilitate this.
Anybody? Did you want to speak, Shireen?
Yes. So it looks like, and I'm not recalling this information before, but it looks like most of the Cape towns that have adopted this had started at a 20% rate or less, and then have moved into a higher rate or stayed at the same. It seems to be a lot of the Lower Cape, which we noted last time, were feeling the same sort of impacts that we were talking about when it comes to living in the small towns here, small towns with big value. I don't have any problem with the staffing issues at all, so I'm fine with reducing it from the 35 to whatever we get to, and start there, and go from there.
Any other questions or comments from the board before I open it to the public?
The only other comment I had was, if you look at Nantucket, started at
So Nantucket, I'll just comment on that one.
Oh.
I couldn't find what Nantucket originally started at, because they started it in like 1989 or something like that.
It's 81, I think, when they started it from what?
Really early.
Yeah, what Dale had told me, that they started it the year it was
Yeah.
enacted by the legislature.
So I could only find 2023.
Okay, yeah, that,
So that's why I put 20% there.
yeah, that's fine, and I agree with Shireen, some of these,
Oh, it says
Other-
year adopted 1990.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right.
It says it on the chart.
I was just looking really at the percentage it was 25%. I'm thinking that, we face a lot of the same issues Nantucket does. They started addressing this much earlier than we did. That being said, I'm willing to chat about the percentage, and I'd like to hear more about the trust later. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? Jeff?
Well, you've heard me state that I'm pretty comfortable at 20%. I think it strikes a pretty good balance between benefit for our working folks and doesn't kill the non-residents.
Okay.
And that's, I just think, and again, my tell is, looking at the data, Truro, Wellfleet, Barnstable, Nantucket was at 20 and 23, and P-Town all started at 20%. Now, some are well north of that, but I think 20%, I think, is probably a good place to start.
Okay. I'm going to turn to the public. Mr. Young, you had wanted to speak first.
Should I shut this? You can close it right there.
Thank you.
One of these. Andy Young, North Chatham. I had a question about some of the methodology behind this and the process of the overlay. When does the overlay have to be funded and by whom?
Candace or Terry?
So the overlay is funded by money that's already in the tax that you start with, but it's by the Board of Assessors oversee it per state law. It's not something that goes to town meeting.
But it's funded by this year's taxes? Next year's taxes?
Next year's taxes.
Next year's taxes,
Yeah.
okay. So we would have to kick in probably 2.3 million or something like that
Correct.
to make sure it's high enough. Now, that's assuming that there's 60% participation. And when you start talking about all these trusts that maybe were not amended in time for, what was it, January something?
January 1st.
2026? Oh, that was a while ago. The participation rate may actually drop significantly, at least for the first year. And I suspect that would have a hell of an effect on the amount of overlay that was needed. Because then everybody will have been wised up by this meeting and subsequent meetings, and then promptly apply for it, beginning for the next following fiscal year. So you'd suddenly have a much higher participation. The other thing that I was wondering about is there's a comment that, once a property owner applies for the exemption, they do not need to reapply for future years. But of course, that's unless their residential status changes or if their property changes hands, which I know you mentioned, which is bang on. I think this town's going to need some practice at doing this before we really get it smooth. I don't know whether it's possible to really automate it, like Stuart mentioned. There's so much individual attention that will need to be paid, particularly for those properties that have trusts being presented. So it's be interesting to see how it works out. I would simply argue that we should start small, or delay a year and see what happens, because now people will finally understand they have to have the trust amendment by January 1, 2027 in order to qualify. Thank you.
Can I just, I think one of the things that we shouldn't get bogged down with is that we're not inventing this, that other towns have gone through this, and we don't need to, reinvent the wheel, that we should be looking, or I'm sure, Candace, you have been talking with your cohorts across the towns that are, and how they've implemented this and done this. So I think that we need to, make sure that our outreach is well documented and well established. There is a well-established early plan to get this to move forward.
I appreciate that, but if you're a taxpayer, property owner, and you get a communication from the assessing office saying that if your property's in trust, for example, as of January 1, your trust should have said X, now you can't do anything about it, and you're going to be negatively affected even if you're a Chatham resident. I know that's a smaller unit of people. But, and that goes to the issue of whether maybe this thing should be delayed a year. But anyway, I just throw that out.
But it's not that you're forever not going
No,
to be
I
allowed.
agree.
So there is the
I
opportunity. It's just
understand that, yeah.
delayed a year.
No, and I do understand it's been implemented in other towns, and we can learn from what they've done.
Okay.
Corey?
Dare I ask this question? I mean, first of all, the $1,500 trust, we need to get some more clarity on, because I think it's going to influence where I'm going to land eventually, to be honest with you. But to any attorneys out there, if something is implemented and a key component of a property owner's action would be, to amend their trust before a certain date, but they implement it and they don't have the chance to go back to that, are there any legal repercussions? I mean, legally, is there any issues?
I'm sorry, I'm not
I guess-
fully understood.
So I'm one of the $1,500, I'm one of the 1,500, trust. And now the town implements, we go forward with this. But I can't amend my trust until a year from now, or qualify for a year ahead. So I'm going to get hit with a higher tax rate. Any legal history or legal precedent of, is there any issue there? I guess is what I'm asking.
You mean vis-à-vis the town?
Yeah, well,
Does the taxpayer have a complaint against the town? Agreement?
well, I guess what I'm saying is, I just learned this information tonight about the trust. I'm not in this position, but, we now know these people who have been identified, whomever they are, they can't remedy it until another year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of lousy on us to do that.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I know we have a lot of mixed opinions on this, and we're passionate about trying to do, right by, but I want to make sure we do it right. And it's, 1,500 trusts is.
And I don't want to overstate it. We don't know how many.
We don't know.
of the
That's the thing, we
1,500
don't have
are-
enough clarity on exactly what this
Yeah, we don't know.
translates to.
We don't know how many of the 1,500 trusts are
Right.
residents versus
I'd like
non-residents.
to get a
But
little more
even if
information
they're-
before we get too
Even
ahead of
as to the
ourselves.
residents, even as to the number of residents.
But the 20%, 30%, it's all going to be the same legwork. So that's an internal number we can work with, and a number we can, but it doesn't matter. The legwork's still going to be the same on the staff, whether it be 20%,
Yes.
25%. I mean, the first year is going to be the brutal
That's right.
implementation. So the number isn't going to make their workload any more or less.
No, no,
So.
okay.
Were you finished? I thought you were.
I was done. I was going to go to the next person. So I saw Mr. Spalter on the screen. I'm going to kind of go back and forth. The chair of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak. I just have a few comments, largely in line with the parameters that you set at the beginning of the discussion. And this is more of a personal opinion than really representing the SRAC. But I'm a bit frustrated by the select board approach to the residential tax exemption. There was minimal, if any, analysis done by the select board prior to the vote to implement the RTE. The discussion tonight has been quite illuminating, and I wish it had happened prior to the original vote. There's been nothing done to identify the population of those who are in financial need, or whether the real estate tax exemption is the best approach to help them. There are 12 to 14 tax exemptions available to help people that are already available, but they don't seem to be well understood or well utilized. Only 87 properties are using those exemptions today. My concern is that the select board has voted to make a dramatic shift in tax liability that will impact some 7,000 residents without understanding if that is really necessary. Additionally, the cost of implementation and maintenance is not well understood. The change in the assessor's office with the retirement of Ardell further complicates the implementation. And outside counsel, as you've just discussed, will be needed to review some 1,500 properties in various legal structures. If each review were to take only 1 hour, that's almost a year's worth of outside counsel fees. It's with that in mind, I would respectfully request that select board step back, take a breath, see who is in financial need, and determine how we can all best help them. I hope that we can find a means-tested solution versus this unnecessary shift that will impact some 7,000 taxpayers, is expensive to implement, and divides the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Young in North Chatham. I'm a full-time resident. I've spoken before this board before regarding this issue. I have opposed it. I won't repeat my reasons why, although they are published in the Chronicle in an article from several years ago. My question here today, I'd like to clarify, and it's really more to the assessing board, and I think I can do the math in the head, but I don't want to make any mistakes. So my understanding is that there's 1,500 approximate trusts in the town, or homes registered as trusts. And I guess, based on the comments we just heard, there's approximately 7,000 individual houses in the town. So the math is that 20% of all the houses in the town are under trust. Does anybody disagree with that? So 20%. Okay, so it is obvious that 20% of the houses in the town are going to be immediately disenfranchised.
That's not true.
Well, it depends on the beneficiary designation of the trust. So that's understood, but it is obviously a potential issue, shall we
Yes.
say.
Well, if I might, you have two cuts, resident, non-resident, and then whether or not the trust includes beneficiary, as trustee and beneficiary. So there's two different cuts. So I think the 20% is math, you're right, but you got to discount those trusts that are, non-residents.
Okay.
You have to, so, and I'm not making any judgment, but I would think that the majority of the trust may be, I may be wrong, but maybe with non-residents, I could be wrong, but.
Unfortunately, it's probably the board's going to make a decision without even ever knowing the answer. Because I don't see that we can really go through and look at 1,500, different trusts. So we're going to make some subjective arguments. By the way, I'm not speaking my own book because I don't have a trust, so it's not an issue, but I do, think more about than just myself. The second question I'd like to clarify that is that in presenting the beneficiary requirements as outlined, do those then become public documents? No. They do not. So they are,
Candace, you need to
they are
come to
protected documents.
So absolutely, that would not be public information. We will make sure everything is going to be kept as confidential, just like of all of our statutory exemptions. They will be locked up, and only the people that are to look at them, that are in our staff, will be looking at them.
You'll retain the documents, though?
Yes.
So you'll retain?
And then after the time frame we don't need, we will be able to shred them. We won't keep them for a period too.
Okay, so if someone wants to make the case that their trust qualifies, it's submitted to you, you submit it for town council for review,
Yes,
and then it's shredded.
yes.
Okay.
So they could qualify.
And it doesn't become a public document
No.
that's searchable by FOIA or anything
There's a
else?
lot of, when people ask for public records requests, there's a lot of things under assessing that we do not give out because it's not public information. So we make sure that we abide by that. And if there's any, concern that there might be some, we always reach out to the Department of Revenue just to make sure that can we or can we not produce this information? To make sure to keep everybody's information safe, because obviously they did this for a certain reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my final comment and question on this subject about the trusts. So obviously, the whole purpose is to try and save people some money, a segment of the population anyway, not everyone. But anybody that's subject to having to revise their trusts to change the beneficiaries is going to incur significant legal fees. And I have done estate planning, and I've paid those bills, and they're quite significant. They would more than absorb multiple years of the initial savings at a 20% level for a $1 million household.
Correct.
So you would agree with that. So I think the board needs to bring that into consideration too. Is like, are you causing more problems than you're actually fixing? I mean, people are going to have to lay money out to get their trusts up to date.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
thank you. Nicole Stern.
Yes, I'm on now. I understand everybody's point of view, but I have to agree with Corey and with you, Dean. It's kind of like coming up at the 11th hour, what this is going to involve. I know a little bit about trusts, but there are so many different kinds, and I'm not sure I understand about the beneficiary part. I mean, my question is the whole purpose of doing this to check everybody's trust, or is it for the purpose of helping full-time residents that live here, that pay their taxes, but happen to have a trust, maybe an irrevocable trust? Nobody's mentioned that. So of course they can't be the beneficiary of it because it doesn't kick in until they're dead. So there's a lot of questions that I'm sure a lot of people have that don't understand the full meaning of different trusts, just like I don't understand it either. So I think we need more time. I agree. I think this should have come up well before 2026. So if there were people that needed to make those adjustments, regardless of, what the cost would be to them, I'm sure they would figure it out. Not at this point. Then they're all caught off guard, and I don't think that's right. I think this is a big deal we're doing. I think it's a good thing that we're trying to do, but I think, the full-time residents that live here, I get the investment people, I get all that, but from what I've learned or what I've heard tonight, I can see people that have lived here for 30 years, 40 years, they're getting on in age. And of course, they want to have something when they're gone. Maybe all they have are their houses. They may be house poor. A lot of that's going on too, and it's getting worse. So I really think this is not the time that we should be implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Anybody else online or in the audience? I see one other person, Don Drinkwater.
Hi, I'm Don Drinkwater. So I'm also a member of the Summer Resident Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking to myself, for myself right now. I'm going to address an issue which maybe no one cares about, and that's just plain fairness. I live in Massachusetts, and the cost of living in Massachusetts is extremely high. I have 4 children, and just like probably the people in Chatham, it's nearly impossible for them to purchase a home. So the non-residents face the same issues as the residents do. And when you think about the effect of the non-residents, in the towns, Chatham's a beautiful town. I love the place, okay? You've got good school systems, you have nice offices, you're what I'll call a very great place to live. Let me put it that way. When you go to other places that have that same quality of life, they don't have a highway running through it or something like that, the taxes are way more than Chatham. So to me, it would be hard to argue anything other than the non-residents are already significantly helping the taxpayers in Chatham, because we're not asking for the same level of services. It costs, I don't know exactly what it is in Chatham, but even an elementary school student is around $10,000 a year, if I have it right, maybe even more. High schools are running around $20,000, $25,000 per student, and you don't have that burden. And I don't hear non-residents saying we should get a lower rate or anything like that. I personally happily pay my taxes. I support the town. I love the town. And I just feel like, regardless of what other towns, are doing this. I'm talking about Chatham. It just doesn't seem fair. And I don't understand why there isn't an appreciation for the people who do come in, who do invest in the town, who do pay their taxes, and really don't expect that much from the town. And my feeling is that why ask for more?
Okay. Thank you. I think you're finished. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Drinkwater.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Mr. Ray? What? Oh, you want to speak to?
So, I want to draw your attention back to the 30th of September, where you discussed all the other great schemes in Massachusetts general law for helping out townspeople. Because I think those are things that you should drive to their limit before you even consider the RTE, this real estate tax exemption. It's such a, well, I commend them to you. As you were excited, I remember Jeffrey going, oh, I didn't know anything about these things. These are great schemes which are means tested. So they have criteria in them that target who you want to help. And we've never heard that about the RTE. And, given that we haven't heard anything about it, the only thing that we can conclude is that you actually want to do what it says in the legislation, which is to give the money from the non-residents, non-voters, to the residents, voters. That's the conclusion that everyone draws from this. And if that's what you want to do, stand up and say it. But if that's not what you want to do, if what you want to do is help struggling people in Chatham, then implement those tools that are on the table already for you. And the criteria are up to you. You can choose what level you put these in at. And I would point out that these schemes, some of which you've already implemented, are the meanest on the Cape. They are literally the least generous of the schemes that are on the Cape. So I'm a little bit skeptical about the helping struggling residents thing. And somehow it seems to be lost in the equation of this argument as to why $2 and $3 million household owners need support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stello.
It's Rob Stollo. I live in Tide Mill Lane. I lived here my whole life and everything, and I don't think I've been on both sides of the fence in this issue. And I've had feelings from being on one end, and I have feelings on being on the other end. I haven't really heard anybody really negative about not helping people that need help. That's probably one of the biggest things I find real positive about this town. And a lot of it does come from our summer residents and the people that sit down here and come here every summer and support this town. There's a lot of money that flows in here, and how it gets spread is, I guess up to how you look at it. But this decision really should be postponed. Give it a year. I think what Corey said is right. Let's look at it the right way. Let's make sure we're helping the people and make sure they're getting the help. Giving somebody $500 or $1,000 isn't going to make their lives. I've been on that lower end. Giving me a little break of my taxes. You say start at 20, then we're going to go to 30, maybe 35. We'll go to 50. Just go to 100. I mean, the reality is, are we really helping them or are we not helping them? We're sitting down here making decisions, and we don't really, I think one thing you got to really look at, I can already tell from around town things that I've heard and stuff. This is a divisive, it divides the town. You got one resident and you're thinking about another resident. We're all one team here. And I tell you, I don't see anybody here not wanting to help the people that really need it. If you ask the money that's donated. I look at the COVID happened, the people that, gave money, that wasn't coming from all native people. That was coming from summer residents, people that live here, wanted to support the people in this town. I think you got to look at all that. So I'm not trying to say a naysayer. I'm not trying to say not do it or whatever. But to rush this through like this, well, personally, I would be disappointed living in this town that happens. I'm not saying that we shouldn't ignore it. I'm just saying we need to really spend some time looking at it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else, but Shireen, you wanted to say something?
I did, because I don't want us to lose sight of some of the things that we've been talking about for the last, since I've been on the board 9 years, about the ability to retain and keep people in town and opportunity and all of that, and what we can do to create a community that values year-round residency. And I think that this was one that we've seen other towns do and do it well. I think we can do it as well. If we need to take this and just back down and look at the trust issue and have a little more evaluation, I want to make sure that we're not just, killing this project death by, 1,000 cuts. Thanks. I mean, because we actually have been talking about this for a couple of years, and the first time we brought it up, it was I believe we decided not to go with it based on that it was going to be too much work for the assessing department at that time, and that we weren't prepared. And then we said, okay, well, let's look at it in another 9 months, and we did. And we said, let's go ahead and do that. There has to be a time where we, that we just go for it and try it. I'm fine with giving it some time as far as the the trust issue, addressing that. That doesn't mean we have to put this on hold today, for sure. But if this is an issue we need to keep talking about until, until next year, until we vote again, then I think we can continue talking about it without delaying the process.
Are there any more public comments? Okay. I'm going to come back to the board, so staff is looking for some direction. I will say that I was initially going to abstain tonight because I don't support the residential tax exemption. I never have. I voted against it 11 times. I'm going to vote against it next September. And the composition of this board could change by next September. And maybe some minds will be changed by next September, but this coming September. But I'm going to vote against whatever is on the table tonight because I don't support this. And we could be directing the assessing department, the finance department to do all this preparation, but if next September the vote is not to do it, that's all wasted effort. So anyway, I throw it open.
Well, I'm not so sure it's wasted effort. We weren't going to discuss this as a grand issue this evening, Dean, but now we are.
I know.
No, now we are, and that's okay.
And
that's fine.
I let the chair of
And
the
that's good.
SRAC open that up, and I let others do it, so.
Yes, you did. And to Shireen's point, and in response to Mr. Ray, every other opportunity or mechanism that we have available to provide relief to our residents, we have others that are going to be on the warrant this spring as well. We've discussed them ad nauseum here. Perhaps you've paid attention and you know what I'm talking about. But there are other mechanisms to provide relief to our residents. I'd like to know how P-Town handled their trust issues, because I can guarantee you that Provincetown had a slew of trusts, and somehow they worked through it as arguably the wealthiest per capita town other than Nantucket on the Cape and Islands. So how did P-Town get through it? And I would very much be interested to know how many trusts are out there, how many are resident versus non-resident, because the residential tax exemption is a tool in our toolbox, arguably as cudgeled it is, because it's not a surgical knife, but it's a tool in the select board's toolbox to attempt to provide relief to year-round residents in those communities, most particularly that have a preponderance of non-residents and who have driven the price of everything out of control in this town. And I am one that would like to provide our residents relief if we can via the tax rate to provide a more competitive living environment for our folks, to provide them some relief. And whether that's residents versus non-residents, $1 million houses versus $750,000 houses, it's a mechanism we have that's available to us that other towns have used successfully, most notably the Lower and Outer Cape. So, and I voted against it 11 times, 12 times, or whatever. I've been on the fifth term. Because
There's no comment from the audience.
because during my campaign, I really got a real hard look at the town, a real close look at the town this last campaign. I walked the town. And I think we don't pay attention enough to our year-round residents. That's what I think. But bottom line.
Sir.
No, I know, but.
Mr. Ray, please.
Our local, anyway.
I just want to say, because the comment is, are you done, Jeff? Are you done?
Maybe. Maybe.
I mean,
And to provide, I think we need to get the data on the trust, yes. But again, to Shireen's earlier point, I don't want to hold this up. We as a board voted to move forward with this. And now our assessing department is looking for some direction. And I'm willing to give them the 20%. I think that's a good place to start. That's where others have started. So that's what I suggest.
So it's been said a couple of times that this has been implemented successfully in other towns. Yeah, the implementation has been successful. Has it been successful in keeping people in town or attracting others to come and move into town? Look at Nantucket. They put it in effect in 1981.
Never reversed it.
They never reversed it, that's true. But it has not moved the needle very much. We saw that data a couple of months ago. In 40 years.
But you have to also look at what Nantucket's done in terms of affordable housing.
And
they've been very aggressive with affordable housing and done a great job over there.
And the other towns.
So has in Provincetown.
And so has
The
Peter.
other towns that have implemented this have a much larger share of properties owned by out-of-town people than we have.
56% out of town in our
Yeah,
town.
it's gone down. Please, no comments from the audience. Mr. Ray, please. Mr. Ray. Mr. Ray, please. I'm going to recognize, I think Elaine Gibbs has a comment.
Yes, I'm sorry. I disconnected myself by mistake. I would just ask that for the people on the select board, at very minimum, I think you should identify yourselves of those who will benefit from this tax credit. I'm sorry. It seems to me that the people who are so vociferously in favor of it are going to actually reap the benefits of it. And I think we should know that. I think for full disclosure. Just like we should know who's getting grinder pumps. This is important. It's going to affect a lot of people. And I think we should know who the people are that are vociferously supporting it, if they are going to benefit from it. Thank you.
Well, I'll leave that to the individual members. I will benefit if my trust qualifies, and I'm not sure it does. And now I'm told that I needed to have it in place by January 1, 2026, 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to be one of those people that are going to be very unhappy when I get the communication from the assessing department. But I would benefit. I know that some of my colleagues are probably not going to benefit who are in favor of it. But I'll leave that up to others. I don't see any other public comment here. Stuart?
So I'll try to lower the temperature with some humor maybe, but I'm striving for it here. I just want to point out, because I think a previous speaker, and I won't get the quote down correctly, that, we were the meanest. But if we look at the chart here, Provincetown is at 35%, and they started the program in 2016. Nantucket is at 25%. Truro is at 35%, and it looks like Wellfleet's at 32.5%. So I don't think the word meanest is the right way to
He
approach.
was talking about the level of relief that is currently provided under the other types of exemptions. I think that's what he was referring to.
So, you know, I'm one that supports this. I think it's imperative that we do what we can, and our tools are somewhat limited on what we can do as a board and to some degree as a community to support those local residents that are, in some cases, you know, striving to stay here every day. And, you know, we have an opportunity. We have a statutory opportunity to implement what is available to us. And it's, this is not new. This has been around for quite some time, at least going back to, well, before 1990. So I think that, you know, the summer or the non-residents that are going to be affected by this, you know, have to make it, I would suggest that they kind of look at it in a broader lens, and that is to kind of objectively look at, may not sound nice, but it's meant in, you know, it's meant to have a discussion, and that is the impacts that they have, not because they're not nice people, they're nice people, they're good people, but the impacts that they've had on the local community simply by being here, simply by owning property. These are good people, but there is an impact to that. And that impact on the local community is not always good. It's not always positive. You know, we see these homes that have been around for a long time in Chatham being torn down, and, you know, I'll use the inflammatory term of a mega mansion being put up, which drives up our assessments, which, you know, doesn't help the local folk who's trying to, you know, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, you know, pay the mortgage, pay the car bill, pay for the children who's going to school. You know, these are real issues, and it's particularly exasperated here in Chatham. So I'm willing to, you know, to talk about the percentage. I am not willing at all to retreat on the concept of this. We must do things to help the folks that live in this community, and this is one of the things that we have that we can do, and I intend on continuing to support it. That being said, I would like more information on the trust, because that does concern me. I wish we had it 4 months ago, but we didn't. So is that something that can be brought together, Jill or Carrie, or in the next week or so, or is that too much? I don't know. No, you are.
I believe that Candace can run a report, but she can only do it by zip code, so it will show a little bit of, you know, something.
Yeah.
It will provide us with something. It would show how many are non-resident and how many are resident by running it by zip code and the valuation.
Yeah, that would be helpful. A little bit more information.
Yeah, and I think she can probably get that to you by the end of the week.
It's not going to show how many of the Chatham residents will qualify.
No,
Because
it
you
will
have to look
not.
at their trust
Because we would have to look at the trust. Yep.
But it's a little bit more information than we have tonight that might be helpful. Like I said, I'm not, you know, and I appreciate everybody's input, and some of the, you know, previous speakers have said that it's a divisive issue. Doesn't have to be. You know, I've also heard that, you know, these other programs that are available, I'd like to hear that.
Please, Mr. Ray, Mr. Ray, you're out of order. If you speak up one more time, I'm going to ask you to leave the room, please.
I'm leaving the room anyway.
So anyway, there was a previous question I think Elaine asked, but I missed the first part of it. So was the question who was going to benefit from?
She wanted a disclosure of whether individual members of the board would benefit or not benefit.
That is correct.
Okay.
She did ask who would benefit.
Okay.
In terms of, who would benefit.
I don't know. I am going to benefit on one side, but I am not going to benefit on the other side. So it's probably going to be neutral for me. Because I own two homes, and I'm going to pay more for the second home, but I'm going to benefit on the first home, clearly. Yeah, I get it. So the math on that, I haven't, and I'm not sure we need to disclose all that, but that's my answer.
Jeff?
If I might, yeah. So on the trust, what the tell will be for me is, what's the percent breakdown between residents and non-residents?
Yep.
If the 1,500 trusts skew towards non-residents, more than 50 or 60, I mean, then that's going to be that's going to be informative for me. That's going to be more, it's going to be less work for the assessing department or into our legal department to analyze, those, whether or not they have beneficiary in trust. So
Correct.
anyway,
Yep.
that's a tell for me, and I'm hoping that it breaks that way. And again, I'm in favor, if you want to do the 20%, I'm in favor of the 20%. I keep repeating myself, but I don't know whether you want to wait a week for that, but these guys need some guidance.
Corey?
First, I'm going to ask a question of their assessing department, then I have a comment. So 1,500 trusts are our current number we have. Is there any history of, like, has the number of trusts in the community raised significantly over, like, what is the trend? Like, do we expect in 5 years that to be 2,000 trusts? Like, what is the trend of another trust in a community?
I would have to run a report on that, because I don't know what we've originally had, but it's always been about 1,500. It just depends upon,
Kind of a stable number.
Stable, yeah, it depends on when people are doing estate planning needs, younger or older.
Okay. Again, so when we last voted, the vote that brought this kind of forward, I mean, I voted in favor of it, trying to keep an open mind to it. I mean, I'm not as adamant about it as some of my colleagues, and that's fine. We have a tremendous political pressure on this, on both sides, for and against. And I respect both sides. We're going to have arguments, and, we're going to have to, ultimately decide when we do our tax classification in the fall. This may all be for naught, depending where that vote goes. But my issue, and I don't want to be a stick in the mud about it, is this process, because, I don't know that 1,500 breakdown, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I know I'm going to be pinching some percentage of that 1,500 is going to be impacted by our vote we took if we were to act tonight. And I mean, I just learned tonight that January 1 is the cut. It's not my situation. My residence is in my wife and my name. So a trust is not a factor for me. I should probably be in a trust, but that's my own issue to get myself in order. But I'm really, it's a significant roadblock for me right now, because I really feel lousy, having this process that has that significant factor into it, that I know some percentage of that 1,500 trust I'm going to impact negatively because of how we're doing this. And, I know I don't think there's enough votes to say delay a year, but it's kind of where my mind goes, because we put everything on the table, but we're never going to break down those 1,500 trusts with all the beneficiaries and everything. That's not going to happen. We don't have the manpower, we don't have the focus to do it. It's not something I'm open to doing at the moment. So I'm shifting back to where I was before, because I have some significant reservations about this process. I know we need to help our residents. That's an understatement, but I'm a process person, and I really, really feel lousy about this last minute 1,500, impact that we seem to have.
So,
Shireen, go ahead.
and I appreciate that, Corey, because it was thoughtful. The thing is, let's just move forward. The vote will come, the classification vote will come next year. If we're not ready for it, we're not ready for it. We can go ahead and look at it again, the following year. But I wouldn't stop the process of trying to implement a program, in the middle of it. I think we should keep doing our due diligence through the process to the vote for the reclassification vote. Because we do need to know, as you said, you want to know more about the trust numbers, We can get that, and we can get as much information as we can. And we're just moving forward without cutting this off at its feet. This is, again, I understand you're a process person, but I feel like this just kicks the can down the road if we say no right now, let's delay it a year.
We can move forward, but when we do the tax classification and without significant change, I'm going to vote against it.
That's fine, but I
So-
have a lot of trust in our staff to give us more information as we move forward with this.
They're going to give us some information, but really not the information I'm looking for, unfortunately.
Okay, I'd like to bring this to closure because we have 2 other items coming up. Does anybody want to offer whatever motion you want? Because they need some direction.
Right now, we have, our vote is at 35%.
Yes.
The opportunity you need to know that,
Well, yes, we need to know, like, if you want to move forward, even if you wanted to hold it for another year. I don't know where you guys are going with this. I'm neutral on this. I just need to know, I need to have a funding source to fund some of this. That was my main part of coming here when I started looking at the budget. This came up, and I was like, oh, wait, I need to bring this back to the board so they could review this some more and further.
so when you say move forward, you need,
Yeah.
for you to move forward, what is
I
it?
need to be able to have an article at town meeting
Yeah,
for something. So that's where
You need to know the percentage?
right,
What else?
you need to know the percentage tonight.
Because it drives the overlay,
it
Stuart.
drives the
Okay.
overlay.
Okay.
It drives the demand of the
Money to be
overlay.
transferred from free
And we-
cash, all of it.
And
I mean,
the transfer is from free cash or whatever you want.
Right. I mean, it doesn't have to be tonight. I just brought it to the board tonight. So if you want to hold on your vote, that's fine. Before the budget is closed in March, I need to know.
Okay. Well,
You
that's
don't
good.
need to know tonight.
You can hold if you want.
What about the hiring of additional staff? Do you need to know that tonight?
Do you want to?
It just delays the whole thing.
I'm going to ask Jill to speak to that.
So because of the unknown, we had identified a temporary part-time, not a person yet, but a position to help get through some of the review. We're close to hiring Candace's replacement as she's been promoted. So we're trying to figure out what we can do internally with some certainty of moving forward and getting the information out. I can say that I know Shauna and Candace have worked together on an information guide to help people understand what an exemption is. It's just, as Carrie noted, as we're looking at the budget and what may need a town meeting transfer, we wanted to get to the board as soon as possible, understanding the whole thing about the trust having a deadline of January 1st of any year is there, and that's information that's new. So tonight, you can or don't have to make any recommendation or give us direction, but March is going to be here soon enough, and that's really our point.
But you also need some direction so that the town can communicate to the taxpayers so they can get their applications in.
Correct, yes.
That can't wait till March if you.
No, that can't wait till March.
And to follow up on that, you have funding, this is a question, you have funding for this temporary help that you need?
Yes.
Okay, so
We
that's,
have, because Dale retired, so we still have her.
yeah, so you have some money. So it would seem to me that that process can start, right? Because it doesn't, I don't
Yep.
think the board is changing on the direction. There may be some, unless I'm reading into it too much, there may be some adjustment on the percentage to help, to help address some of the concerns. And we can get more information on the title issue maybe next week, and, that would be helpful.
Well, next week's our budget session, but whatever they can come up with, they could perhaps mention that during the budget presentation.
Yep, sure, we can do that.
Okay.
I don't want to stop moving forward,
Right.
but some of these issues, I get it. And then I'll keep quiet, but the January 1st issue, okay. That's, that ship has sailed, so to speak, and I have to think about that a little bit, but thank you.
Jeff?
January 1st issue is nettlesome which is an understatement, to not kind of know that it would affect the trust so dramatically. We didn't know that when we took our earlier vote, and some of us knew a couple of weeks ago, I guess. I've heard, this is the first I've ever heard of it. And it's unsettling, and it's nettlesome, and I think it's bothersome, and I think it's potentially going to slow momentum down. And we have, honestly, no matter what folks think or say, we've bandied this about for years in a meaningful way. So I think that whether we go forward, when we go forward with this, or if and when we go forward with this, and it affects the tax rate, our tax rate is still ridiculously low. Ridiculously low. Now, the tax bill will be reclassified a bit, but our rate is still very low. And I've heard that all over the place. So and in terms of self-aggrandizement, I mean, I haven't done the math, but I own properties, and I'm going to win on one and not win on others, and I don't know what the math's going to be, to Ms. Gibbs' point. So, I just want to use a tool in the toolbox to provide relief to our year-round citizens. So I'm going to make a motion that we go with 20% rather than 35% that I actually moved the last time, and really in an uneducated manner, and that we fund it with $500,000 from the overlay account and $500,000 of free cash. That gives you some direction, which is what you sought this evening. And I don't think, and plus further information on the breakdown in the trust versus between residents and non-residents, I think is critical. And again, it's more than nettlesome, it's bothersome to me that we're hearing about that so late in this process. Thanks.
So your motion is?
My motion.
Your motion is to go from 35% to 20%?
Yes.
20%, and fund it out of, with 500,000 from free cash and 500,000 from the overlay.
Correct.
That's the motion.
That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Second, and also to fund the staffing as well.
And the staff.
Well, the staffing is funded.
It is funded, okay.
So I don't think you need that in the motion.
Great.
Well,
I'll second Jeff's motion.
The staffing will affect next year's budget.
Yeah.
All right, that's the motion. I'm going to call for a vote in a second. I'm not going to support this. I think it is divisive. By nature, it's divisive. It divides non-residents versus residents. It divides residents versus residents. That's bad. And I think it's a very foolish idea. I think it's foolish to take money out of free cash to fund a foolish idea, and I'm going to vote against it. And I really hope that someone brings a petition article to town meeting to give instruction to this board, even though it might not be binding, to give instruction to this board not to do it between now and next September. So I'll call the vote, unless anyone else has anything else to say on this. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
And the chair votes no. So it's 3-2. All right, thank you. Next is
Thank
the, thank you very much, Candace and Carrie. So the next item is to consider committee appointments to the Board of Health. And let me pull that up. We have we have currently 3 members on the Board of Health. We've had some resignations, and so there's one regular member, and there are 2 alternate members that we'd like to, and who are interested in being elevated to full member status. And so, and they are Joanna Kale.
And Ron Weishar.
And Ron Weishar, and Kathy has indicated to me that Mr. Weishar was first appointed as an alternate on November 12th, 2024, and Joanna Kale was first appointed on December 3rd, 2024. And so there's a slight difference in the tenure and I point that out because there are 2 vacancies. What are the vacancies now? We have 3, don't we? We have 4.
If I might.
So what are the terms? Maybe we can appoint them to the same terms.
I think we can appoint them both to 27.
So of, 2 of the resignations were for terms ending 27, and the most recent one was for a term ending in 2028.
So, okay, so I would suggest when we appoint one of them to 2028 and one to 2027, but I'll leave that up to you, and we can decide which one you want. There is a slight difference.
Yes, the 2020 resignation came in after the
Yeah,
agenda had been posted.
That's what happened here since the memo went out. Mr. Weishaw was elected yesterday by the board to be the vice chair of the Board of Health.
He'll go to 28.
So I'll entertain.
Thank you, Mr.
first motion.
Chairman. I move to appoint Joanna Carroll as a full member of the Board of Health through June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'll call a roll on that. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Mr.
Another
Chair, I move to appoint Ron Weishar as a full member of the Board of Health through June 30th, 2028, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I would point out that we have also an application to be reappointed to the board by Carol Gordon, who was formerly an alternate. My intention is, unless there is objection, to appoint that, to present that name for appointment to a full position next week, just before we begin the budget summit, unless there's any objection to that.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. With that, the board is now going into, consider going into executive session, and just need to get the right document in front of me. The next item is an executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, parenthesis 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, parenthesis town manager. With that in mind, I'm going to offer the following motion. I move that the Select Board go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, parenthesis number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, parenthesis town manager, close parenthesis, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares with no return to open session. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Mr. Castro, the chair votes aye. So we are going into executive session. We will not return to open session. Good night, Chatham.